Yes, yes.
Okay, cool. All right. So I think we got two people here. We got Fire Devs saying, "Hey, what's up, Fire Devs?"
Fire devs.
How can I see? Oh no, it's someone. Someone just left.
They let. How can
Maybe
you
that
say?
was
Oh, I
Fire
see.
Devs. I don't know. Uh,
It's all
I
right.
don't want to be involved. Well, okay, cool. So we're picking up where we left off last time,
Yeah.
which was a few months ago. We were talking primarily about, I think, like escape era
Uh-huh.
Perry. It felt like, or at least like maybe more about why we love Perry and like just the general observation of his technique, right?
Exactly. His technique and his technique, durability, and just the fact that there were a lot of singers in that era that had similar ranges.
Mm.
But for some reason, Steve Perry sticks out. You
Oh
know.
yeah, yeah. Well, why don't you name a couple other folks that you think of that of the time that had similar vocal ranges? Are there other singers that come to mind that you're like, oh
Yeah.
well, like I think of Brad Delp
Brad Delp.
uh, as
Brad Delp.
somebody who, you know, uh,
Absolutely. Brad Delp. Geddy Lee.
Mickey
Um.
Thomas of
Yeah.
Jefferson Starship
Yep. Um.
or Starship.
Who sang God? What's it called? Jukebox Hero.
Lou Graham.
Lou Grant. I mean, Jesus Christ, insane. Um. Yeah.
Right,
Uh.
Russell Hitchcock. Wait, I'm not. Who's Russell Hitchcock? Why is that not?
Let's see.
That's not.
Let's see. I'll look him up.
See, well, that's kind of exactly what I'm talking about. Like, there are some people who you might not even know by name that also had
That
similar
kind of
abilities. Oh, he's the Air
Air
Supply singer.
Supply. Nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. No, I did
Uh.
not know him by name. I did not know.
I'd vouch to almost say. I mean, maybe. Well, I'm not sure. Maybe Peter Cetera.
Uh huh. Yeah,
And
no, his name
yeah, Peter
pops up
Cetera.
quite a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
there
up
was
there.
some Rolling Stone. I think it was Rolling Stone article recently that was like the top 100 greatest singers, greatest rock singers.
Uh-huh.
I think it was Rolling Stone, but I remember Perry not even being ranked that high.
Probably like
Like,
72 or something.
yeah, it was something kind of like,
Something ludicrous.
oh,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, okay, this kind of BS as far as I don't know how they're ranking these people.
I
I don't even remember who was number one. I don't.
Right.
But anyway, back to Perry's technique. I think there's something to be said about his stamina
Uh-huh.
versus others. And when you talk about somebody like Brad Delp, even Geddy Lee,
Yeah.
to a degree, very different kind of singer.
Yeah.
But thinking of live versus studio, I actually always found Perry to always be better live than studio. I don't know if that
Yeah.
could be said about the other guys,
Right.
generally, and not that they weren't bad live. I mean, Mickey Thomas is extraordinary live,
Right.
and still is. But as far as like the guys of that time period, I feel like Perry had a reputation for like bringing it every night and elevating,
Yes.
changing up the melodies, singing even higher than the
Right.
record, doing even cooler dynamics
Doing
than on
cooler
the
riffs and
record.
runs. Yeah. And I think what Perry had on his side was like a very specific tone in his voice.
Absolutely. Which we'll talk
That
about more today. We're going to talk more about the change of his tone throughout the years. We did
Yeah.
not get into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's just something when he would sing live. I think he was just channeling. He was a very big fan of R&B singers. Like we
Sam Cooke, of
discussed
course.
last time, like Sam
Yep.
Cooke and whatnot. So a lot of his like off the cuff singing is kind of rooted in R&B.
Yeah.
Um.
There is a singer that he referenced in an interview once, Steve Marriott, who was in a Humble Pie. I
Uh
don't
huh.
know if you've ever delved into Humble Pie at all,
Never
but
have.
somebody asked him once, and I only read this interview recently. It was like, who's one of your main influences? And Steve Marriott was one of them. And he was surprised that people hadn't picked up on it yet.
Ah,
Almost like he was like, people don't realize that I'm kind of like ripping off Steve
ripping
Marriott
him
or
off.
something. And so like I obviously that made me want to dive right into a
Hmm.
lot of the humble pie stuff. And dude, like, oh my God, I
Is it
don't
obvious?
necessarily hear like escape Perry, but I
Uh-huh.
hear a lot of street talk Perry, raised on radio Perry,
Uh-huh.
with Steve Marriott, which is interesting too, because Perry also has referenced that those are the records where he felt like he was himself
Him
the
in control.
most.
Yeah.
Like he was, yeah, exactly. Like he was
Hmm.
actually singing the way he wanted to sing, which is an interesting.
Right.
That I find that interesting. Like you almost wonder, like, did he kind of mold his voice in the beginning to fit what he thought Journey needed to be? You
Wow.
know, I think he even said in this interview, I'll try to find a link for people,
Hmm.
but that it was friends were commenting to him about Street Talk, saying, "You're sounding more like I know you, how you sang like pre-Journey,"
Amazing.
which is like, oh, I mean, I don't know if you ever read that or not,
I haven't
or
read that.
heard that.
I mean, I did hear that Street Talk. I mean, clearly because it was his solo record, but Street Talk was more of the sound that he wanted to do with his voice, regardless, as well as like Raised on Radio. He had more control with Raised on Radio
Yes.
um, at that time, and it makes sense.
Mhm.
Street Talk isn't as screechy high as like Departure or
No, and it's got more of a grit to it, of course.
got more
Like
grit.
obviously, the
Yeah,
tonal quality of it is different.
yeah.
It's
Like
chestier.
I often wonder if I mean he was getting a little bit older, but I often wonder if he wanted to like step away from that ultra high octane, crazy range singing just because, just for ease and durability and wanting to do it for a longer time. And was Journey an outlet where it's like, okay, I have to sing at this standard, I have to sing these types of notes, where with my own stuff, you know, I have more creative control.
Of course.
I don't have to sing high E's all the time.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what that it reminds me too is I read an interview. We're getting some pretty cool
Oh
questions
yeah.
coming in, but uh, I read an interview with Robert Plant where he was talking about he was saying that he was embarrassed almost by the first couple records where he was singing a lot in the fifth octave, all the really really high stuff. I mean, that's my personal favorite era of his,
Yeah.
but that he felt like he had no choice. He needed
Mm,
to be heard above
the
everything
rest.
else. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that was kind of Perry's uh, collaboration with Neil in a way,
Hmm.
where it's like, I've got to be heard above Neil,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
still a struggle for every other singer that's come in with Journey, where
Right.
it's like you have to rise above and be
Ex-
heard. So it's like you end up
yeah.
in a whole other octave,
Yes.
to cut through, and there's barely any guitar solos or anything on Street Talk.
I know.
Uh, so it's like he's not competing, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
He can just kind of stay wherever he
In this
wants,
range.
where he can sit wherever. It's still crazy high,
It's
but
yeah. It's
a
still. I mean,
different tonal quality.
it's still crazy high, and I think that also speaks to the partnership that he and Neil had, um, musically. Like
Mhm.
Neil and Steve's voice were in tandem.
Yes.
Um, you know, uh, a lot of Neil's solos probably came from. I just read an article, actually, an interview. I believe it's Steve Lukather's son who has a band, and uh, he was playing somewhere, and Perry. I mean, obviously they're all friends because Perry and Lukather same era. Uh, and
Mhm.
Perry came to see the band, and I guess he was like shredding, and Steve was like, "Stop the shredding! Stop the shredding!" He said, "Do you want guys or girls at your concerts?" And he's like, "Of course, I want girls." And Steve's like, "Well, yeah, you have to learn how to be melodic with the guitar, and not just like."
I never knew about this discussion.
Dude,
I mean, it
dude,
makes sense,
yeah, I just found it like this past week. I should find it and like send it in. But he said, yeah, but because me and Neil, we had this beautiful relationship where he would play a certain way and it would help him sing a certain way.
Yeah.
So with Street Talk, he's not, he's not rocking out with Neil, so he doesn't
Right.
have to do that that playing back and forth
Yeah.
with Neil's unbelievable melodic playing, which
Right.
is probably helping Perry express some crazy emotive melodies and high notes and whatnot.
Right.
But
Well, okay. So someone said, I heard Steve sang on Street Talk without warming up on the early mornings. Yeah, that's also a very interesting
scary.
rumor that I've heard as well. Like,
Yeah,
particularly O'Sherry, I believe that's what I had heard, that like it was O'Sherry that,
I've heard that too.
yeah, he didn't warm up for it. He just wanted that kind of gruff sound, and I mean, mission accomplished. I
Yeah.
mean, like I actually like revisiting that album recently. It's almost kind of jolting sometimes. Like
Hmm.
that vocal entrance, the should have been gone's, is like kind of jolting, as far as like that it was not even close to the same kind of sound that you would have
It's not
heard. Like you might not even know it was Perry, you know.
exactly, dude. Yeah.
Um Gosh, it's so interesting, especially coming off of the listening to the audiobook,
Hmm.
Jonathan Cain's
I need to
Don't
get that.
Stop Believing audiobook. I've just started listening to that, and he makes a lot of points about how Steve was making a lot of comments around that time about how he wanted to kind of escape that sound and escape Journey,
Mm.
like, so in a way, like, really have a departure. And I didn't know this either, and I didn't share this with you before, but
Uh-huh.
apparently when they wrote Open Arms together,
Uh-huh.
Kane and Perry said to Kane, "I'd love to use this for my solo album if you don't mind." And Kane was like, "No, you can do ballads with Journey. You don't have to we don't have to feel like it's one or the other kind of thing. Like, let's try to make this work." But like, so he
Oh
actually had been
man.
thinking of a solo album all the way back to
80,
81.
81. Good lord.
Which makes a lot of
Interesting.
sense too, as far as him wanting to have that kind of departure by the time, especially by the time it came out. I want to do a completely different sound. I want to
Yeah.
do what I want to do. And I mean, for what it's worth, Raised on Radio actually
It's
kind of ended up being Street Talk too,
too
you know,
yeah.
in a lot of
They're
in a
like
lot of ways.
they're
We can talk
cousins.
more about that. I love
And
Raised
I
on
love
Radio.
Raised on Radio. Like
Um,
I mean I love them all. I love Frontiers, but Raised on Radio definitely has it just feels like I just dig it more.
yeah, I have read The Singer's Talk. I bought it. What a fantastic
Yeah.
book! This is the book I was talking to you about before. I
I
might have
think I
showed it
read
to
the
you.
Perry I read the Perry chapter. It was like 3 pages or whatnot.
Right. Oh yeah, I like screenshot
Of course
shot
I
it to
did.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, incredibly interesting book. I mean, God, what a like if you're a Perry fan, what a blessing it is to have that kind of
Seriously.
interview with him. It's like so intriguing. Raised on Radio is definitely underrated. I love how Steve's voice sounds live and studio. Yeah,
Yeah.
me and Gene were just talking about before we got on here about live versus the studio.
Mhm.
And how exciting the live versions are compared to
Of
the
these
studio.
songs.
No shade to the studio, but like there weren't a
Right.
lot of singers that were making those kinds of uh,
Choices.
choice. And like balls to the wall on the Raised on Radio tour. Like
Yeah.
maybe we'll get into that a little bit. We should kind of go maybe a little chronological. We should back up a little
That's
bit.
fair. Yeah.
I'll answer this question though real quick. The Steve Perry drink remedy before shows.
Uh,
Yeah, I think I kind of left
yeah.
that dangling a little bit last time, and I know we never got to talk about it. So it's half glycerin, half lemon juice, and that's it. It's half glycerin, half lemon juice. Is the Steve Perry juice apparently that he would take before the shows.
Wow.
Pretty interesting, and I there was a period of time, maybe about 10 or 15, maybe 15 years ago, because time's just flying by. But I was doing that pretty regularly, just cause it's like, oh, it's what Steve Perry does, and it tasted actually like it wasn't the worst. It wasn't as
Uh-huh.
bad as it sounds. But you know what? I will say that there's something a little trippy about it because and I don't know if it was because I was taking it too much, which is something that I do. Sometimes I'll take too much. I mean,
Yeah.
there's that one gig we did. I took too much slippery elm. Like, who knew that was a thing? Like, I was drowning in slippery elm. Yeah, but it's like, you gargle it. You gargle this glycerin lemon juice mixture,
Uh-huh.
spit it out like about 10 minutes before you perform, and then. But the thing is,
Oh.
that's what trippy about it is, yeah, of course, it lubricates your chords so much, but there's something for me that once the chords get too loose, you almost don't know what's going to happen. There's like a little bit of
Mm.
like, there's almost too much freedom where the voice is kind of just soaring out, and that's like a really good feeling on in some cases where you
Uh-huh.
don't feel like you're really pushing as much.
Right.
But at the same time, like for me, there needs to be like a little bit of tension somewhere
Mhm.
where I just don't like the feeling of not being in control, where it feels like notes are kind of coming out and I'm almost losing technique
Yeah.
in some way, like a
Okay.
little bit of my strategy, that's all like so premeditated in what I do. And
Yeah.
like, I think there's like actually a little bit of that sound in the Raised on Radio tour coming from Perry, where it's like kind of, you listen to it and you're like, oh my
What?
God, it's almost like he's like just kind of like throwing it out there and like there's
Yeah.
not a whole lot of
Thought. It's
yeah,
yeah. There yeah, like listening
balls to the
to
wall, like
yeah. Like when I listen to like the Raised on Radio concerts on I think Chase Harlan's account. Um
yeah,
it's
incredible, by the way, like that account.
yeah, incredible.
Mm,
It's just hearing him is just it's shocking. It's just shocking. Um
mm,
because we know how good he is and how calculated and how smart he is vocally,
mm.
that I'm like, God, it sounds amazing, but dude, this is like it goes into a territory of like, is this vocally safe? Like,
Yeah,
is this
like no, he's like riding that line
riding the line? And
dangerously,
I think he crosses it quite a bit, man. Quite
yeah, you're
because like
right.
because he's like he opens the concert and he's like screaming like the name of the city, Detroit. Like I'm like,
Oh,
bro,
oh, yeah,
you
we
hear
haven't
the
started yet. Yeah,
gravel
yeah.
and for like such a, I guess since what people need to understand is that like for high tenors, for like clear high tenor voices, the early Perrys, it's a delicate voice. It's a delicate instrument.
Yeah,
It's not an instrument that you can just really beat up, because the chords are so small.
right.
And when Perry's just out there singing these stratospheric notes like C's, C sharps, uh, with such power to them, it's shocking. It's like, dude, are you thinking about this, or are you just like, screw it, let me get through this concert and give them everything? Then
I
you
mean,
get the best performances ever.
some of the best performances he's ever given, but
Yeah.
it's like the lyrics to "Be Good to Yourself." I've been,
Yeah.
I've been like really kind of like thinking a lot about that lately. I think because of the Kane book, because like he would make comments like it's all in the lyrics. Like, if you want to know what Perry was going through during that time, like it really was like in the words. And it's like, oh, be good to yourself, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Running out of self control, getting close to an overload,
Well,
want a
yeah.
long vacation, like all
Crazy.
this, like it's like he was definitely like riding the fine, like that dangerous line, because I'm sure he was partying more, and like the the
Uh-huh.
the uh,
The
the
fame.
stress level of the success, and having
Yeah.
to perform at that high level was at its all time
Right.
highest, and
Peak.
like you hear it in his voice, at that
Mm-hmm.
time.
Right.
All right, let's actually like let's backtrack a little bit. So,
Yeah.
Escape, you
Yeah.
know, the cleanest, like honestly, like he his voice on in the Escape era is kind of like the my go-to as far
Mm-hmm.
as what does a perfect voice sound like. It's
Yeah.
like what when I feel out of shape vocally, it's usually because I'm not singing a whole lot of Escape era stuff where I
Dude.
can really zone in, where because it just takes so much strategy, and like
Yeah. It.
and you
Yeah.
have to focus on your technique to get
Uh huh.
that kind of sound and to get through any of those songs.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so yeah, and it's this clean, beautiful voice that has like endless stamina.
Uh huh.
And I don't know if you've ever checked out some of like the 82, like the end of that tour. Have you ever
I
listened
have.
to like the very like end of the Escape tour?
Yeah, because I believe by then they had dropped like Mother Father from the set list.
They started
Uh
to, I think, yeah.
huh. But yes, I have. I have heard some of that, and
I think he made it pretty much all. He made it
he
all the
made it
way
through.
through that
He made it.
tour
Yeah.
with that technique in place.
Yes.
You know,
And there are some great audio clips that are not on Houston 81 where he does some even cooler things in
oh my
different
God,
shows.
yeah.
And it's like,
Houston
man,
81 is like the end all be all concert, but there's some
right.
stuff on Chase's account that's like, holy shit, like
Uh-huh.
this might be an even better performance than that. But that goes to show like that technique that he was using at that time, he was able to get through that vigorous tour with that.
Yeah.
I haven't heard one show from Escape that's like, oh, that was an off night.
Off night. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I think that it's actually just a fact. They didn't take much time in between Escape, the Escape tour and the Frontiers
The
tour.
Frontier
Kind of
tour.
like they went kind of like right into front. They were only like a couple
Right
months
into
off
it.
or something. I'd have to check for sure, but like there wasn't a lot of downtime,
Right.
and
Between.
that and they did do separate. They did do separate ways on the Escape tour. I'm pretty confident
Separate
in
ways?
yeah, they did do several ways on the Escape tour, near the end. I think there's like a
Oh, I mean, they were
Day on
probably
the
like
Green
writing it.
performance that yeah, there is an 82 performance that's like,
Oh yeah,
"This is
it's
a
on you.
brand new
Yeah.
song. This is like the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
time
you're
we're
right.
ever
Yeah, and
playing it."
I think he sings like the first verse twice or something, or it's
Yeah, right, right. Um, and what's my point? Oh, he sings that song with more of his
escape voice.
escape voice, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I don't. We analyze this a lot. We haven't talked about it on here, but something happened during the recording of Frontiers. Whether it was a creative decision
Hmm.
or not, but it seems like just generally that album they decided to go
But heavier.
a heavier route. They
Yeah.
wanted Steve, or maybe Steve wanted, I don't know, that the tonal quality of the entire thing was going to be a little bit heavier, or even a lot heavier. Like Back Talk is
Yeah.
like not even a Journey song.
Yeah.
It's almost like something
Yeah. It's like it's as if he sheds the more the more, what's just the right term, like the more boyish quality of his voice.
right.
Like,
It's almost like they
from
were
like
like, yeah. Go ahead.
beef it up a little bit, like beef up the sound. Um, what other artists were out during that? Like, probably,
White Snake.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. So you got to
Stuff was
compete
getting
with like
heavier. The
the
guys
heavier
had
bands,
beefier, chestier voices, and we
chestier.
got to remember that Journey at the time was not that there wasn't a male demographic for the band,
Like a girl, yeah. The girls
but
loved them.
they were like doing ballads and
Yeah,
stuff, and like
yeah.
in fact, like it's debatable that they kind of kicked off the whole power ballad era. Like ultimately,
Hmm.
that Open Arms like did that,
Yeah.
started that whole wave, and it was like cool to do. It was and
To do
are
a ballad.
okay to do a ballad, because I know Neil
Hmm.
did not want to do it at first, but
Right.
anyway, it seemed like almost like Frontiers was kind of like, we have to prove that we got balls, though. We got to
Yeah.
prove that we're not just like a band for girls, and that we don't
Uh-huh.
just sing love songs. Like, I feel like there was this kind of over compensation or something
Uh-huh.
going into it. And I like Frontiers, but there's like a little bit of like, we got to really come
Yeah.
in hot and heavy on this one.
Yeah.
So
Yes. especially with out the gates with like separate ways, and then what's the other one? Dun, ticka, 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 dun, ticka, ticka, dun. I bet you she's the one. What's that one? Come on down.
Think about Edge of the Blade.
Edge,
Or
bet you
no?
two, you're on the red light up the gun. Chain reaction.
Chain Reaction, of course.
Chain
Yeah.
reaction. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think Steve decided to sing a bit heavier. I think it was all because of vocal damage in the USA shows of '83. He had nodules. Yeah, but well, I didn't know that. It's pretty obvious. Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I think we're talking a little bit. We're not quite at nodes yet. I think because like we're it's like it's just the recording the conceptualization of Frontiers. You
Right.
know, singing heavier, and which is not was not something that he was doing on tour. Everything is so light and clean and and
In place. Yeah.
with that nasal placement.
Right.
Uh, Now we're removing a bit of that, or even a lot of it. The sound is starting to go
To go a bit
back
back.
this way,
Yeah.
and the mix is starting to the
Come down.
percentage levels are changing.
Yes.
So if he was 80
Yeah.
head
Yeah. For sure.
dominant,
Now he's like.
20 chest,
Uh huh.
escape departure,
Mm-hmm.
era. I think we're now looking at maybe more of like a 60, maybe even 50-50.
In terms of like chest and head.
Yes, as far as like how things are now getting shaped, how things are getting
Yeah.
leveled out
Yeah.
tonally.
Right.
There's no doubt there's at least 30% more chest
More
involved, right?
for sure.
So what happens with that is that that takes a hell of a lot more effort,
Yeah.
and if you're singing that and working on that album, and like I think he goes up to maybe E or F on Frontiers. It's a very, very
Ooh.
different
For
sound.
both.
You might
It's
even
both.
go higher on Back Talk. I think like he does like kind of this kind of screechy high on Back Talk, but it's like how strenuous that is to sing that way, especially if you have not been spending a lot of time prepping for that. You're just kind of going for it and like just trying to get the most macho
Mm-hmm. Sound.
sound. You know, it's like I bet after recording Frontiers, he was pretty worn out. But then it's like, oh shit, well now we got to go on tour.
Now we got to do it live.
Now we got to go on tour, and I think this is just kind of like how I'm piecing it together. It's like that was a very fatiguing recording process, and he
It had
didn't
to
have
be.
a lot of time to even recover from it. And
Right.
now he's going out there and having to
With
sing
that
it every
sound.
night, plus the escape songs.
And he sings the escape songs um a bit like heavier. A bit heavier.
Because his voice, I think, his body was confused. It's like you have been trying to tap into that other sound, but here's what happens:
Uh-huh.
you start retraining your muscles
Yes.
that way.
Right.
It's very, very difficult, especially if you do not have the time
To do
to relax and start and reset
right.
and rest.
And
What
plus
ends up,
after like finishing, a the escape tour, and probably not having as much time to rest. I mean,
yeah,
you need time. Like you
yeah,
really need time, because we do gigs, but we're not playing like stadium shows, 150 nights out of the year. So that his voice, it's like an athlete. So the voice is definitely, let's like, tired, injured,
no in
probably.
ears back then either.
No in ears, and and then recording a record, and that's already a mental game. That's already, you have to bring your A game. And some people are saying, oh, I also think it wasn't intentional, all that touring, Yeah, I mean, I think that's also a part of why the sound he did go for that sound or did have that sound was, you know, the previous tour. And I do think a part of it was also keeping up with the bands of the era,
Yeah,
so adding a heavier tone
yeah,
to compete, and then having to go out on the road and sing a song like "Separate Ways," and then oh, we're still doing "Line of Fire." Okay,
yeah.
all right,
Right. Exactly,
you
exactly.
know,
So, real quick, from a singer's perspective,
yeah,
where do you feel like you peak from a chest voice level? Like, say you basically are not using any head resonance, and you
yeah.
were just kind of like punching your chest voice up to the highest note. Where does that sit for you? Like, where is like your breaking point?
Without being like I really should be mixing now.
Yes.
Um, I would say B4, like B4, like somewhere hiding in the night, you know. But
At the absolute maximum capacity.
that's that's yeah, because I really yeah. Other than that, because I mix it like I
Yeah.
always mix a B. Um, but when I'm having like a lot of fun, or when I used to like imbibe, when I used to drink, I would just like belt it just because I wanted to and could. But
Yeah.
I'd say B4.
Right. From my side, I mean, I'd be lucky to have a chest voiced B for every day, though, on the
Yeah,
tour, on the road,
right, right,
Like,
dude.
that is, to me, that's is very, very stressful to not to
Yeah,
be able to be like, I have to have that kind of sound today. It's like sometimes I'd be lucky if I'm tired. It's like lucky to have like a chesty G sharp
yeah,
for, it's like the voice is very, very finicky and
very
fragile
finicky.
that way. So to kind of force that sound every night,
Is
you're actually that head resonance that he
you,
relied on for so many years
it goes away.
starts to deteriorate, and it's
Yeah, absolutely.
harder to access. And then
Right.
before you know it, all you have are these options down
Bingo.
here. And
Yeah.
that's what, in my mind, caused his no's from
Right.
from from forcing his voice night after night,
Yes.
refusing steroids, which was like a good thing, because there's a lot of things that um can go awry that way.
Yeah.
Um, but no, the inflammation is just also getting
It's always
higher and higher and higher. And I think and I believe he did burn himself out pretty early in the Frontiers tour, and then by the mid, I think he was actually really, really struggling.
and
Um,
that's and you absolutely and
they
you
had to
hear it.
cancel shows, even. It got to that point, which is like, gosh, I don't even think they do that now. It's like, if Arnell's not feeling good, I feel like it's just like, go out there, kid.
Going out.
It's like,
S-
still like,
s- Sing, singer.
good luck. There's just like
Yeah.
this, like the stakes are even higher now, which is insane.
It's yeah, he still sings and the tempos are like slow. I mean, during the tempos are
Right,
like
which makes the songs harder. What type of voice is used for those last high notes on Mother Father? Is that falsetto? I'm going back here, just reading.
oh yeah, yeah.
It'd be
Oh, I
interesting
see
to
it.
hear some Frontiers demos. Yeah, if he was singing them clean or not. Um, I don't think Separate Ways would have sounded as good with the cleaner voice. No,
Oh,
and probably
I agree.
none of those songs probably
I
would have.
agree.
I mean, like, did they make a bad decision going in that tonal direction? Like, maybe not for the record, but for Steve, it wasn't. It wouldn't
Yeah.
help. You know.
Yeah. For the record, it's brilliant. I mean, it's brilliant. It's brilliantly sung. It's crazy. Like what he did was incomparable. Thank God it was on a record, you know?
uh, the voice at the end of Mother Father. Those last
Uh,
notes are
uh,
falsetto. The,
I yeah, I'd say I think it's yeah, I think it's like yeah,
are you?
like
Did you just sing? Because because I didn't even hear it.
Oh no, I didn't sing. I'm just like feeling it,
You're
placing it.
feeling it.
Yeah, I
it's
feel
like
like
the
it's
lightest, like it's like the lightest, quietest
head tone.
falsetto. It's like the floatiest, and then you add all like the reverb and stuff, and you push it
Yep.
back a little bit in the mix. It sounds like so angelic. Like he's not pushing that at
At all.
at all. Yeah. Steve's voice was phenomenal on that movie soundtrack for him, especially on Destiny, Little Girl. Oh yeah, yeah. That reminds me of like how only the young and what was the other one that they didn't
The
even
one in
have
80,
on the album? It's like
the one in 81.
yeah, Ask the Lonely.
Oh,
Only the young and Ask the Lonely aren't
that's
even
the
on
only.
Frontiers. Like I can't even believe that. Those are like one of the two best songs, you know. But
Oh, he did.
they add them now onto like some of the vinyls, I think.
They do. They do.
Um, okay, so he's struggling through the Frontiers tour. Shows are getting canceled. You know, I'm pretty sure shortly after that he's right onto Street Talk. You know,
God. Yeah.
and now he's not warming up. He's
Right.
going into the studio and he's not worried. You know, it's just interesting. So it's like you're coming off of Damage, you know,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
this like insane amount of fatigue, you know, and now you're going in and finally making your solo record, and you want to accentuate that gruff sound.
Right.
While I'm thinking about it, this is I'm gonna start a rumor here. You know, there is a video that's floating around of Street Talk demos
Uh-huh.
that to me sound it's either a fake video. It's not a real. They're not real demos because
Uh-huh.
to me they sound like the exactly like the original recording, but punched up a half step.
Uh-huh.
It's like the same exact performance, and like I mean, I've just listened to Street Talk so many times. It's like
Uh-huh.
I would be
It's
able to pick
exact.
up on like the subtlest differences in his vocal delivery. But they're like a half step up, and someone's saying that these are demos, and to me, it's either that somebody just made a fake
Pitch.
video and said
Uh-huh.
these are
Pitch them
demos,
up.
or they actually were demos and they lowered the key for the record, like they used vari speed
Uh-huh.
to slow it down and to make to depart to have more of a departure from his Journey sound to even
Interesting.
accentuate that even more, that it's this lower tonal, you know,
Very.
difference, you know.
Uh-huh.
And you know, listening to those demos, it doesn't sound necessarily pitched up. It sounds like
This is
what
how you
you
would sing
might
it.
think Perry might actually like sound like around that time.
Uh-huh.
You know, still like
Interesting.
rougher around the edges, you know, still like raspier, but like
Yeah.
it's like the tonal quality you hear like a little bit more going on through here.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, I find that really like an interesting. What if that is what they did? Like they actually sang it higher and they lowered it to
And they
just.
lowered slow the tape.
There's one of the songs where that really furthers my cases. Maybe they were real demos. The song "Go Away." Go
Uh-huh.
away, go away,
Joy. Yeah.
sing goodbye to
Bye to you.
you.
Yeah.
It's like that almost sounds like, yeah, maybe that is lower. It sounds like someone sped that down. You know, it's like sounds not very not very Perry. You
Yeah.
know,
A very Perry Christmas. Yeah.
you know, I don't know. I'm not gonna ride on this topic for too long, but I just like that is an
I
interesting
mean,
potential production element of that record.
yeah, it's not,
Uh,
that wouldn't be surprising if they, I mean, they did speed up tape and slow down tapes back in the 80s, you know?
they sped them up, and it wasn't very often that you'd
Uh-huh.
speed something down.
Yeah.
I think maybe like the Beatles, you know, they would do stuff like that,
Right. Yeah, true.
but not for like the same reasons. Like this is interesting.
To
I
like set himself apart as, okay, this is Steve, the solo artist, um, who wants
Yeah,
to
and
like,
like a whole new Steve. Yeah, I
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Interesting, he never did tour Street Talk. At least I'm pretty sure that he didn't.
yeah, he did.
He might have done like some one-off shows, is what I mean. He didn't tour it, but he might have done like a couple concerts. There's no evidence of that other
Yeah,
than again on this Jonathan King audiobook I'm listening
audiobook.
to. He was like, I tried to get into a Steve Perry show and I wasn't on the list. He said, but like, I mean, that's a
God.
funny anecdote for sure. But like, what I took from that more was like, there was a Steve Perry show.
Right.
Like, there was a
Where?
solo
When?
Steve Perry show. Like, is there any audio from that? And I would be curious to what key did he sing those songs in? You know,
All these
going back
songs
to
and yeah. Yeah.
um,
This probably a top secret industry show. Who knows?
right. Uh, it was I've also made. Yeah, what's up? I love this account, the Journey and SP Media account.
Oh yeah, same.
They post great stuff. And okay, yeah, now people are talking about AI Perry, which
Oh
is
yeah.
which is something that I
Yeah.
we did want to talk about. I mean, should we can we diverge real quick?
Yeah, we
We'll
should. We should.
all right, so put a plus on the Street Talk era. Let's jump ahead. AI Perry. Um, thoughts on AI Perry?
um, I think it's I think it's crazy because one time I think I listened to a track and I didn't know it was AI Perry. And I was like, "Oh my god." I'm
You
moved.
thought you
I
found this like newer version of Still
Yeah,
They Ride or something?
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't recall reading that it was AI beforehand. And I remember listening to it on the subway and I was like, "Damn. God." I'm like,
Almost
only Steve makes me feel this way." And then I saw AI and I was like freaking out, like angry and like because I hate the fact that a machine can make me feel something. But like a lot of the AI parry stuff, it doesn't sound like him. It
it's
doesn't have this
mostly miss. It's mostly
mostly
miss.
miss.
But
They got lucky
the
on
Good
one.
Morning Girl one and Still They Ride, those are pretty well
Pretty good.
executed. Like I mean, I was listening to that Good Morning Girl one like all day when that came out because I just couldn't
Uh-huh.
believe it. But like I think that the main takeaway I get from especially that one was it does sound like Trace's era Perry,
Mm. Mhm.
but he's singing higher than Trace's Perry,
So you can
like
hear
than like real human Perry would.
right, and you can hear how it wouldn't work.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like the vocal coach in me is
Uh-huh.
like, I wish Perry knew that he could still do that. You know, it's like it was nice to hear, like even though
Yeah,
it was a computer, you know, making him do it, I could still tell that he has more in him than he
he
allows
does.
himself to have.
I
You
think
know,
he's nervous.
he absolutely
I think it's
is.
just nervous. I think he's haunted by his past, like his past
Absolutely.
voice, past self.
And we talked about in just hanging out, but we should talk about it here is like the reason we feel that way, that we know that he's holding back, is
Mhm.
because of the way he can still hang out on certain phrases,
Yeah.
um, where he's at now. Like a lot of stuff on Traces has him. I mean, he's not pushing very much, or like it's not like the loudest, most present sound. You know, he's a very
Uh-huh.
like up on it, but
Right.
he's hanging out on like G and G sharp
He's sharp. Yeah.
still and like doing like pretty consistently like throughout
Mhm.
songs and it's like oh well I mean A and B flat and B like are like they're not even that far away it's
They're
like
in the same family. Yeah.
and when he picked the keys for his performance with the Eels I mean
Yeah.
I don't even know man like there's like the safest
It was like baritone Perry.
yeah
Like
and you can even tell then that he once he was doing it and once he was in front of the audience which he hadn't done in a long time I
he
could
wanted to be higher.
tell that he was like
Oops.
I'm a little in the gutter now. Like my spirits are high, and that's where my
Yeah.
voice wants to go now. And he started
Right.
doing like on some of the videos, he's like trying to get up
He's trying to reach
into
right. Yeah, and
It's
that's
like very
and that
interesting.
and that's the funny thing that people need to understand about lowering keys and how people think it's easier to sing a certain song in a
Yes.
lower key. Uh, it's not necessarily the case. Sometimes the original key is great. Sometimes half step higher works as well because the
Sometimes,
just
man, and it sounds
sometimes.
like such a like nearly arrogant choice to be like, go to your band and be like, can we bump this up a half step? And it's
Yeah.
like, welcome
What?
to the jungle. It's like, but
Right.
no, it's like, you're like, are you crazy? It's like, but no, it's just gonna sit a little bit easier. I'm gonna be able to point it out a
To
little
ping
bit
it.
better. It's
Hmm.
like sometimes when you're riding uh, a certain like what's the word? You're like hanging out on your passaggio, on the passaggio, like
You
you're
get
the
tired.
breaking point. It's like, oh, like you're almost gonna crack or something.
Yeah.
It's to lift
Uh
up
huh.
a little bit above that is sometimes more helpful. So to go back to your point about like lowering a half step not being a good idea,
Hmm.
sometimes for a tenor voice, that's even putting you in even more of a compromisable place because now
Absolutely.
say the song rides on an A4 a lot of the time, now you're on G sharp 4, that's potentially even more fatiguing, because now you're in an even more compromisable, but your mind thought like, oh, it can't be here, you
Right.
know. Sometimes it's
Right.
better to just either work
It's
on the song more to find that placement, or bump it
exactly
up higher, or change the melody so that getting you're
getting
getting the
over it.
pressure off of those tough spots,
Abs- one
middle point spots.
trillion, 1 trillion% agree. Agree. That's because
uh,
you're hitting like a ceiling, and the voice blossoms when it's healthy. It blossoms up like a bet like that in that shape. And when you're stuck at this part of the vase vocally, like a little bit in the passaggio, you can't get through it. You're just hitting this ceiling because you're just riding the brake. But once you're able to like lift above it, support the right amount with the right amount of placement, you step above that and you can just like sing freely, obviously with good technique. But with those that eel show, I remember seeing that, was that 10 years ago now? Almost 10 years ago.
yeah.
Yeah. You could tell that he was just on fire and wanted to like blossom vocally even more, but he was singing songs and like it was just too low.
Weird keys. So actually, before we move on, though, that you're making some really good points. One thing I really learned from Perry very early on was how he would adjust the melodies live
Yeah.
to
Mm,
help improve his stamina. So
right.
a lot of that Journey catalog, uh, you know, it sits in a relatively sensitive place for a tenor voice, and he
Yeah.
knew very well when he needed to lift off that pressure. So what's a win-win is that when he would do stuff live, he would sometimes go higher than he
Yeah.
even would on the recording, and we're like, oh my god, he's even better live. Oh, he's so crazy live, you know.
Right.
But actually, and it's a win for him because he's actually taking pressure
Pressure off.
off from by not doing the melody that's harder and actually
Yes.
singing something higher that's easier, question
Right.
mark. And I find that I it's a little bit of a misunderstood thing, I think, maybe between some musicians that don't sing, where if I'm taking liberties vocally,
Hmm.
I swear to God, it is not because I'm trying to show off most of the time.
Right. Right.
Um, a lot of the time, it's mostly a strategic move to
Yeah.
take pressure off my chords and hit that kind of win-win, hopefully a win-win situation where it's like I'm doing something cool that's
Uh huh.
entertaining to listen to, that's different and surprised you, and
Right.
I'm also taking a load off myself by lifting up, you know, out of
Yes.
an area where I might be starting to feel a little bit stress or strain, even. You know,
Ab- I do the exact same thing. Like taking case like this like like the G4. on the piano. Like any song that has a G, I'm always gonna like do a G and like option up to like a B. Or if I'm feeling extra good, I'll like option up to a D. Not because I'm trying to show off, but because G is such an easy note for me. I tend to over sing G. I much pressure because it feels good in the
It's
body,
easy to, yeah.
easy to do, and it feels good in my head because we hear what's in our head. We never hear what's out there. So if I'm hammering a G, if a G feels like an E, I'm like, okay, you're going way too hard on this. You have to lighten up. What's gonna help you lighten up? Go into a B because I'm not gonna hammer a B as hard as I'm gonna hammer
And then you
a
land on the
G
G from a different
from
perspective.
a higher place.
You're
Yeah,
coming
you
from
land
it
on
from
top.
above.
So now you're not like hammering, and then you're not like slamming it, which
Absolutely. I know. And when I
which
do Led
fatigues you.
Zeppelin stuff, that's very much the approach. Whereas a lot of the time, it's like if I have to come in on an A,
Uh huh.
gosh, man, like I don't know, like
Yikes.
that's probably like A4 is where you have to make the most decisions.
The most it is. I think it's the hardest note. A
It,
four
it,
is
it absolutely is. If that's where the whole song sits,
no,
if
thank
it's
you.
there, it's like okay, that this is going to require some strategy. That's usually where my head
Mm-hmm.
goes. So what do? Most of the time, at least when I'm practicing, or until I can find the placement I need, I'll start up on a C,
Uh
and
huh.
then make my way down to the A to find the placement. You know.
Dude. Yes, which makes me think of Open Arms,
Mm.
um, and how he sung Open Arms differently. Like when it first came on, what he would do. So now I come to you with open arms,
Uh,
without going to the B,
yeah.
and then in not the Raised on Radio tour. Which tour was it?
Strange
I guess
medicine.
I guess it was Raised on Radio, where he just live he goes in one of the verses he's just like holding out an A. Yeah, the whole time.
Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like,
Yeah. It's something insane. A to like a C and like maybe a D, just like flipping through all these notes because he's like, I'm like, dude, I get it. I'm like, it sounds so amazing, but I know why you're not singing the verse. Because it's just easier to just like fill up the tank and
and
just like
sustain.
sustain and like let it go.
Right.
Um,
Well, he was always very good at like almost taking like the quality of his voice is obviously the priority, and pitch is the
yeah,
priority, not
yeah,
not diction,
not
and
diction at all.
not necessarily sense. You
Yeah,
know, it's like you know,
it doesn't make sense,
that's like,
dude.
and I've definitely learned from him in that way, where it's like sometimes you make choices that like they don't make
Yeah,
sense, but like you want to sing on pitch and you want to keep people entertained and engaged. So it's like, you
right.
end up holding out this B and like almost forgetting the phrase completely. And this is like,
Yeah,
if you're doing like, 2 hours of Journey songs, it's like, yeah, those are the kinds of decisions you're going to make sometimes,
right,
you know?
right.
I'm just going to check in on the comments here.
Yep.
Thank you guys so much for interacting. Like
Yeah,
this is,
seriously.
we need to do better at interacting with you. His performance with Bon Jovi in '89. I have seen that. Sounds a bit thinner than Raised on Radio. How would you guys judge his voice range in that performance? Have you heard him with Bon
That's
Jovi?
that's when he does not was that Stand By Me? He
I
did,
thought it was Stand By Me. Yeah.
yeah, Stand By Me, and Bon Jovi calls him the voice. Um I think he sounds absolutely incredible there.
Yeah, he was recording Against the Wall, which ended up getting
Never came
scrapped.
out. Yeah.
Well, like
Yeah.
yeah, I learned that at the time.
That was 89, huh? Wow.
Which is like, probably my least favorite effort from him if I have to be um if I have to be nitpicky, it's like the Against the Wall vocal performances. He does sound strained to me on those. Um,
Bring it on. Yeah. They're
Bring It
saying
On
he
Home. That's right. Bring It On Home.
Sam Cooke. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
That makes sense. Yes,
he
yes,
sounds
yes.
better in that performance than he does on the Against the Wall recordings.
In the Bon Jovi concert.
On the Bon Jovi concert, yeah. Against the Wall, it just like I don't know. He sounds really hoarse and tired, and it's a very forced sound. I kind of understand why, like maybe the company or Steve or it was maybe both, where they were kind of like, this is just not hitting quite right, and it was dropped. Um, Interesting. So he went balls to the wall on the Raised on Radio tour. His voice was in much better condition than it was on the Frontiers tour.
Yeah.
He's coming full guns blazing on Raised on Radio tour.
Yeah.
Like running out of self-control. I mean, like that is the most. Oh, it's almost more Olympic level than Escape in some way. I think just because of the power.
The power,
alone.
dude. Yeah.
Just because of the power is like astounding.
Right.
Because as a singer that he's singing that much more dangerously.
Yeah. He's like a Super Saiyan at this point, vocally.
I don't even care about the cracks on that on those tours. I still find it absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah, I mean, I like when the cracks come because I'm like, yeah, of course, it humanizes them, and it's just like, yeah, it humanizes them, and as like a student of singing, it helps me realize, like what really works in a live scenario, like what really works, like how far can you push this type of instrument. And Perry was gifted with a very resilient high tenor voice that just cuts through no matter what. And by the Raised on Radio tour, it's as if he still had the highs, but now they're like more golden. They're thicker. He's not the agility is different.
Yeah.
The agility.
He got a hold of this technique a little bit more. He was more prepared going into the Raised on Radio tour. He had like a year or so off as well. I mean, look, I know that him recording Raised on Radio was also like an awful experience in a lot of ways. I know his mom died during that, and I think that when you have a traumatic situation like that happen to you, that changes your voice and it puts a damper on your chords. I mean, when my uncle died last year, I lost my voice for like a month and a half from just the tragedy of it. It's like it's not like it had nothing to even do with my technique or anything, but like I just like wasn't able to sing the way I normally would. And it's like if, you lose your mother and then you're about to go on tour and you got to sing all this stuff. It's just like, oh my
who
God,
wants to do it? Like
just
the body,
grueling,
Yeah, the body doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, you just don't want to do it.
Don't want to do it.
Exactly. There is more head resonance going on in Raised on Radio. So if like Frontiers was 50-50, I think now we're like looking more at like 60-40.
Yeah.
I think, but still like that much more chest presence that it rounds out the sound in a more exciting way that doesn't sound as harmful in a way. Did that make sense? Did I say that?
No, that makes sense. I'd say Raised on Radio sounds smarter.
A little bit. Yeah, maybe just a little bit more aware. I don't know. Maybe not. But there is a resonance shift.
It's chestier. It's definitely like it's chestier but balanced. It's a bit
more open than he is on Frontiers. That's what it is. He's more clenched on Frontiers. Yes. The chords are coming together.
They're colluding hard.
Like this, and even pinched. On the Frontiers tour, whereas Raised on Radio is nothing but open.
Right, which
and that's what's also so thrilling is like he's full throttle open now. And if he's not like this, like on Escape, he's like over.
He's like this.
Out.
He's
now
perfectly
he's like,
mixing.
Now he's like this.
I feel
Um,
like Escape is the quintessential masterclass in mixed singing, like
yes, yeah,
perfectly mixed
absolutely,
singing. Um,
absolutely.
I'd say Captured as well. I'm a big fan of Captured, and
Yep.
he's got some incredible moments there.
Oh my God, yeah. But
I
that's like
just
head dominant. That's a head dominant
head,
sound.
yeah, exactly. Head dominant mixing,
Yeah,
for Captured, which was thrilling.
yeah.
Um, More safe, definitely safe, smart
Lighter,
singing.
quieter.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Escape is like the perfect embodiment, but by the time we get to Raised on Radio, it's wide open, super thrilling,
And loud.
rock star singing.
Yes. Let's like, I want to say too that the volume is different. And,
Mm,
if it's not just where he's placing sometimes like that's a little less consequential than how loud are you singing?
yeah.
You know, on Escape and anything before that, especially like the
Uh-huh.
volume is at nearly conversational volume.
Yeah.
And that is where you get that also where you get that clean, controlled sound where he's just like landing on everything absolutely
Yeah.
perfectly.
Yeah.
Frontiers, he got louder, and then Raised on Radio is probably the loudest he's ever sang
Yeah.
on like anything, like
I'd say
throughout his
so.
career is like the full throttle, like volume,
Yeah.
you know. And when you do that, that is also extra fatiguing. I'm talking
Yes.
like ultimately, like what are the results that you get from singing that loud all the time? It's like,
Yeah, man.
yeah, and that's where the cracks come from, more
Mm-hmm.
so than even the technique itself.
Right.
It's the
It's
volume
the
of it.
volume.
It's the volume of it, because if you think of it this way, it's like if you're doing a run or something and you're punching it at full throttle,
It ain't
it
gonna
actually
happen.
doesn't really make much sense, right? That you would land perfectly every time, or
Right.
that you wouldn't misstep
Right.
somewhere,
Of course.
and crack, or gosh,
Intonation issues.
yeah, right.
Uh-huh.
I mean, Perry's never gone like shockingly flat or sharp ever. Like I've
Never.
never, but
Never heard
like
it.
there's a little bit of like, where the voice just gives out, at
Right.
from time to time. When he moved on to Strange Medicine, I feel like he lightened up his load a bit. Like he lightened the load, his load.
Mm-hmm.
He lightened,
Yeah.
he
And
lightened the load a bit. I
yeah.
I absolutely love his voice that era. That's like
Yeah.
personally like maybe from a texture standpoint, my favorite era of Perry.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I mean, I don't know if you agree with that, but like I love '94 smoky open
Mm-hmm.
Perry.
It's like mature.
It's mature, and he's like doing the Escape floaty sound again.
Mm-hmm.
There's less chest involved, and it's open, and you hear all like the crunchies going on in his throat and
Yeah.
everything. You hear the road in his voice.
Yeah,
It's
man.
extra velvety, and like I love hearing him sing the Journey stuff in that era,
In
and
that.
hearing the stuff with that kind of texture to it.
Yeah.
And I thought most of the tour, he sounded phenomenal on that tour. And I know he fought a lot of sickness on that as well. But his
Yeah.
technique was kind of, in my opinion, back to
Back to
back to where he
escape-ish.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. That was his solo tour, right? Where he
Yes.
played at like the Beacon with Lincoln Brewster and whatnot.
Yeah, and he matured. His voice matured, but he kind of went back to his old technique. That's how I hear it. It's not the same kind of punching that's
Right.
on radio.
And I think for that tour, like he lower a little bit,
Yeah,
like a half step for like not all of them, but like
everything got lowered a half step.
half step. Yeah. I
That
mean,
was like maybe like I think that was a safe
Smart.
decision.
I
Yeah,
think it
I
was,
think that it makes sense that he did that.
of course.
Even if it's just like a psychological thing, it helped him get through the tour. Just like knowing, oh, I
Right.
don't have to do what I used to do, even though he does outrageously cool alternate
Exactly.
melodies on Strange Medicine, where he's like going up even higher,
Yeah.
doing stuff that he didn't even do back in the 80s.
Uh
Um,
huh.
Speaking of Open Arms, he does one of the shows. He does an incredible. Summer come to
Uh huh.
you.
Uh
Just
huh.
like what,
Yeah. Just like on it. Mm-hmm.
he does modify his vowels more as he got older. He started ditching "come to you" for "come to ya,"
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
which is also, if you're not a singer, vowel modification, opening or cheating your vowel, like from an "oo" to an or an "e" into an "eh." That that all helps. That,
I'm
what?
just I'm just remembering that concert we did back, was that in Delaware? This summer when we were doing Don't Stop Believing, and you had me sing a verse, and I forget, I cheated one word. Uh it was
Chef
egregious.
perfume
What did I
chef
do?
perfume.
Chep.
And I think I said to you afterward, I was like,
You
I don't
did.
know if I've ever heard that cheated before.
Yeah. Smell
Little
a
wine
wine and Chep. Yeah.
shop.
Yeah. Yeah, so you cheat. Yeah, so when we say like we're cheating vowels or like cheating words, like there are certain vowels that are just hard to do, or just they're just like harder to do on certain notes.
Yeah, you're right. Go ahead.
So like cheap, like smell of wine and cheap perfume, like the E on a B4 is like
Tight. It's
challenging.
narrow. Yeah.
It's tight and narrow. So
And that day you felt like you needed to open it up.
I said like chap
Well,
perfume.
I will rarely do Boulevard. I'll do what Perry did.
I do buh. Yeah,
Boulevard.
yeah, I do that too.
Um, Agreed on Strange Medicine. My earlier comment talked about the voice being higher again.
What did you say
Yeah, yeah,
earlier?
yeah. All right, let's check in here. I wonder
Felt
what
like
happened from the ROA tour to 89 to 94 that Steve lost that much range. He didn't tour, so there's probably no way you could lose that much by not touring. Well, okay. So we don't know if Steve ever had surgery on his chords.
mm,
If he did, that's something that I've never heard about ever.
right. Jeez.
Um, if he did get surgery, I think it's pretty well known that that can that can alter your voice as well.
Right.
That like it's like sometimes who has like Mariah Carey has nodes,
Never
and
got
her
surgery.
and her managers, have said like don't get surgery, just work through it.
Yeah,
And so
like
he's never gotten surgery because there's like the Julie Andrews
Julie
circumstance
Andrews. Yeah.
where you get
Yep.
you get the surgery and then like you lose it. You don't have the nodes anymore, but you lost your voice.
Right.
So it's like you could say like, oh, if can you work through it, and like so it's either Steve has been working through it, you know, all these years, or maybe he did get surgery and that also caused the shift. You know,
Right. And he also said that by the time um that record came out and he was forced to make a decision on getting a hip surgery, that he kept saying that he was toast, through all the party favors of the tour. And I think in those years, I think he probably just didn't sing. I think he probably maybe vocalized in the shower, if that, or was just so over the machine, so over touring. And he said that he fell out of love with music. So I'm not surprised that the voice would diminish, because if you're not using it every day, if you're really if he grew a passion to dislike music or singing as much as he almost makes it sound like, I could see the voice is very responsive to your emotions. And if you're not in a good place, or if you're over it, the voice doesn't need to show up, you know?
yes, and if you're not exercising it the way you used to,
Yep.
you're not working as hard to maintain your range. So that,
Hmm.
say, for instance, like he's singing around the house and he tries to go for any of the Journey songs in their original key. And on that day, it's like it's just not happening.
Uh huh.
It can be very easy to just start going into that mindset of I can't do it anymore,
Yeah.
and I can't get it back. I'm like I tried the other day and it didn't happen. I think we know the truth is that if you're working on it and you're exercising every day, and yet your voice does mature as you get older,
Hmm.
but you don't necessarily ever have to lose it. You
Right.
know, there you might have to change up the way you get there. You might have
That's
to
right.
change up your strategy, but there are enough cases of people who have gone through all kinds of rehabilitation
Hmm.
and have like it's like Steven Tyler, although he just had another incident
Right.
recently, dude's gonna come back, man. Like it's
We'll be
like
back.
he's never not been able to find his way back because he works at it and he tries.
Right.
I don't think Steve. I don't think Steve's aware that he can still do a lot of the stuff he used to.
I agree.
I think he's just kind of limited himself over the years. So it's like I just don't. Maybe he just doesn't want to do it anymore. That's fair. I just don't want
Hmm.
to sing that high anymore. It's like, okay, dude, fair points, but
Yeah.
you can hear that he still has the space
He does.
available. That I think as a fan, that's what's frustrating about some of the newer stuff, where it's kind of like you're kind of waiting for like a
The
money
moment.
note or something because you can just
Yeah.
like tell he's got it, but he just kind of stays in like a safety space.
It's
Still
safe.
sounds great, but it's
Hmm.
like I think from like a fan standpoint, there's a little bit of frustration as far as like,
Right.
oh God, man, like I want you to like, go
Just
for
give.
it.
Yeah. Give us like an extended B flat. Like
Yeah,
something
right.
that we know you for. Because
Yeah.
even in the Dolly Parton duet, um, he does one note. I forget. It's either a G sharp or a B flat. Because I remember talking to you about it. I was like, yeah, he. I was like, it's what you think it is. But he did hold out. He did do a G sharp or something, and you're like, he did. And I was like, yeah, listen to it again. And it's
Oh yeah.
there, and his voice. It sounds like nothing because he still has that quality.
Oh yeah.
The
So like why couldn't he just go up 2 notes high? You know what I mean? It's like, yeah.
he's
Uh
got it. I think he's just. I think he's I think he's just nervous. I think if he would just have to want to. If he were to like
yeah.
get up with like a voice teacher, um, and just work at it, he'll get a lot of it back.
Yeah. Maybe
But he's
if
also
he wants to, I am not in any way like ever
we're not
talking
down.
down about Perry.
No.
I even like I I don't think that Perry has ever had a downfall in his voice as far as like his voice changed over the years, but I never thought his voice got worse
Bad.
over the
Right.
years. Yeah, I like, throughout it all, like I love all the eras,
Yeah.
Um well, have you guys heard Home at Last? I have heard that before. One More Time. That song is like one of my all-time
I know.
favorite.
I haven't heard Home at Last. I've heard of One More Time. I've heard that.
That song, the sustained notes that he hits in that are like
Hmm.
some of my favorite Perry moments ever. Um, Going back real quick though about like how he would do the alternate melodies and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of the other former or even Arnell,
Yeah.
you know, the other lead vocalists of Journey, I don't think that they had that luxury for the most part, like of
I don't think so.
getting to duck notes or really do anything too outside of the box. Arnell does do some
Some
like
things.
some out there things.
Uh huh.
Um, but for the most part, they're singing it at the original studio tempo and they're like sticking to the melody. And Steve never did that.
Yeah.
And I think that to do that every night is extra strenuous and
Yeah.
and all of them have struggled through it because of that. I mean, singing any Journey song note for note without any embellishment is like
It's
it's
cruel. It's
yeah,
cruel.
it's cruel.
Yeah, it's cruel.
Yeah. Um, his
Yeah,
voice changed with age, and yet he has always been consistently perfect, in my humble
yeah,
opinion. I absolutely
I
agree
agree.
with you. Gosh, I mean, what else did we want to cover today? Did we cover things? I
I
mean,
think we covered it.
it could be question time, maybe.
Yeah,
Anybody have any questions about like any? I mean, it can be anything Perry related and like whatever our opinions are
yeah.
regarding that. But like even just like singer talk,
It's fair. Yeah, sure.
just like technique questions. I mean, God, if you have any questions about anything that we do or what we've done, we did everybody check out our duet? Send her my love. We want to do
Yeah.
a
Oh
couple.
yeah,
We do
check that
want to
one
do a
out.
couple more.
Oh, how do you
I,
reach those Steve notes without feeling like you need to belt?
yeah, ask Steve, man. Well, so let's go back to like volume control. It's like
Yeah.
that is actually the secret ingredient a lot of the time.
Hmm.
It's like the illusion is that you are singing powerfully and at maximum capacity,
Right.
but you actually lose agility when you do that, when you are
Hmm.
actually singing at 100%, which I would recommend no one does.
Ew.
There's just no stamina there, you find agility and you find your range and you find the pleasant tone by finding the middle ground, and
Yes.
that's a lot of trial and error. When I first started singing Journey, probably around like 17 or 18 is when I really
Hmm.
started like taking it seriously. Like, I want to be able to sing this entire catalog and I want to be able to, I just want to be able to do what Steve does.
Yeah.
That's the kind of voice I want to have. In the beginning process, it's like, yeah, you're going too hard on it and you don't even really know what it is. And I swear to God, we can talk about all these other like nuances of where you can place your voice and whatnot to to achieve maximum journeyism in your sound, but like
Yeah.
but volume is actually probably the top key ingredient, I would say. Finding how can I hit these notes and be
Yes.
present enough that I'm not that I can do it again and again and again,
Right.
and that it's just enough. And I would record myself over and over again until you find that happy medium
Yes.
where the note is present and it's there, but I'm not at maximum capacity.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did that kind of answer it?
I think that makes.
When you're not singing super loud, that's where you find your mix. That's where all the other ingredients
Hmm.
come in. Not by shouting it.
Right. It's like it's the balance of like breath pressure, and like you don't always want to like place the voice, but when everything is lined up, it kind of like you get it, it places itself, especially as you speak on with volume and whatnot.
I
I
want to
try
recommend.
to
Go ahead. Sorry.
oh yeah, what I like to do is if it's like for say it's like a B4 or something. A lot of times we want to like load up as much as we can and you know grab it. But sometimes it's like, can I hit this note with my mouth barely open? Can I keep all the support inside like the abdominal cavity? And can I still make this sound come out without ha, like over enunciating and overdoing it just to get out? Because the higher you sing, the less volume you need. Because the chords stretch so thin, and you don't need to use as much power. Like to sing up there, it's more restraint than it is actual like strength to get up to these high notes. So, yeah, you add a little bit of twang, like Sean knows a lot about that. You add a little bit of twang, and it's really like
It
you
sounded
said.
nearly like a dig.
No, I mean, no,
Sean knows
no,
a lot about that.
because you told me.
Uh,
Um.
are you? Was that a finished sentence or?
Oh. What was I saying? Yeah, you add a little twang, and you just kind of. It sounds cliche, but you find it for yourself. Like your body will know what feels good. Like Sean, I started listening to Journey a lot when I was 17, 18, and listening to, Departure, listening to 81 Live in Houston and Captured, I was like, okay, this is a healthy vocal production for me
Mm,
at my age. When I would listen to Frontiers in Separate Ways,
mm,
I'm like, okay, it's a bit heavier. It's a bit
yeah,
heavier sounding voice that doesn't necessarily fit my timbre. So
yeah.
I really focused more in on the Escape era, which, in my opinion, is his peak mixed
Technique.
healthiest
Yeah,
technique. He's
yeah,
like a technical wizard in the Escape era. And
absolutely.
like Sean said earlier, I know I'm in like great vocal health when I'm like really doing those singing that
When you
kind
can
of.
get through 81 Houston all the way through,
Yeah,
yeah.
I can't do that now. I mean, I've been working up to it, but for me to get there, I would just have to like literally play that DVD every day and sing along. Like,
Yeah, yep,
and
absolutely. Same.
that's
I I would recommend to who asked that question. It kind of starts also with a yawn. Like to get that open space in your throat is crucial to achieving this sound. That
hmm
that's usually one of the first things I'll do when I wake up to start my voice,
nice.
to wake my voice up. Find the pitches in an open throat, and then I just expand on that. Bring it more forward. Now I'm gonna open the
Yeah.
vowel. Hey, hey. That was a C actually.
Woo!
Hey.
Hey! Yeah.
Th- that was
Hey!
Now that's not even remotely close to like the loudest I can sing that note. That's
Yeah,
like
dude.
probably like minimum scale from 1 to 10, probably like 3 or 4 as far as like the note just being present, you know. And a lot of the time when I'm singing Journey, I'm not singing much louder than that. That's like kind of like where that's kind of what Steve would do, in the early days. He's just kind of tap, tap, tap. It's all just like there. We can talk more about how that evolved over, time
Uh-huh.
and how that shifts. But that's kind of like the space that he starts in, that he started in, you know, volume level 3 or 4
Uh-huh.
volume, and having that open
Open space.
space where that's just kind of where the voice is living. What's more remarkable about it is that he had a loud rock band behind him, and he trusted
Right.
that he was singing just loud enough. I mean, I can't even process
I mean,
going
yeah.
through that kind of experience. Um,
What do you
no,
think?
no autotune. Nice job, Sean. I don't use autotune. W Grace. Um, I've played your Center of My Love 100 times. Oh, that's so nice. Uh, rendition of Eyes of a Woman. I mean, see perfectly make your own. Thank you. Uh, has
Ooh,
Perry
where's
ever commented to you guys? Nah,
Nope.
that's like our
What's the
end
dream?
all be all. Like, how do we get to Perry? Like, I feel like we both have gotten acknowledgement from other bandmates over the years.
Yeah, like
We
Neil.
both have heard from Neil. We both have heard from Arnell. Have you heard from Arnell before?
Not from Arnell, just Neil and Lady M.
And Lady
Yeah.
M.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go, the Shawns.
The the Sean
Um,
family.
no, if we could hear from Steve, I mean, that's like the goal, man. Like, it's
That's
like,
yeah, that would be
how,
like
how, how do we get to Steve? It's like he heard some janitor sing "Don't Stop Believin'" and shared it. It's like,
I know. I would even take a cease and desist letter from Steve Perry and like
yeah,
frame
right,
that in
yeah,
my
yeah.
house.
He heard me sing. Yeah. How did you decide to learn to sing Steve style? Uh, well,
Good question. Holy crap.
I had ruined my voice. I had a vocal coach. The first vocal coach I ever had, um, really steered me in the wrong direction, and I was singing. I knew nothing about head voice or mixed voice. Everything was just chest.
Mm.
Um, punch it in the face, kind of like just lift up to everything. Diaphragm, diaphragm, diaphragm. And by the time I went to college, my voice was toast because I like was trying to sing Journey and trying to sing all this rock music, and I was trying to hit all these notes, and my voice was just kaput. You can't do that. You know.
Mhm.
Um, so I had to relearn how to sing. Basically, it was a scary time. I had to figure out like how I was going to figure out the tools and retrain myself. So Steve Perry and Billy Joel actually were the two voices that I kind of settled on as far as like if I can be a mixture of these two guys, I think
Yeah.
that if I can sound like this, have like the different elements of these guys. So I've just listened to them super
Mhm.
carefully and like imitated them honestly with a lot of trial and error.
Yep.
And there was even a point where it was like, gosh, I just sound like a cat dying, trying to do this stuff. But like, you fast forward, 15, 20 years later,
Yeah.
we were showing my age here, but like, it's, uh, I ultimately retrained myself, and gained a whole new technique that has worked for me, and I've been able to teach that. And it turns out that there are other vocal coaches out there that say the same things. It's like I found the secret
Mhm.
on my own, believe it or
Yeah.
not, by emulating and imitating. I've always been very good at imitating, and so that's kind of where it started. And only these past few years, I've really been able to find my own voice where I feel like I'm not imitating, which is
Dating.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about you, Gene?
I'm trying to think of when I first got into Steve Perry. It had to be like '06. So I'm in high school. Because I was a big Michael Jackson fan. I've always been a fan of like high tenors. So it was Michael fan, and then I heard Stevie Wonder on the Bad record singing with Michael singing "Just Good Friends," and I was like, Michael's amazing, but who is? We all know Stevie, but he's like singing above Michael, doing these crazy riffs and high runs.
Uh,
So then I got heavy into Stevie. So it started for me
TV.
with like Stevie Wonder,
Yeah.
learning like how he sings and his voice is just beyond. His musicality is beyond. And but I also was like into rock music. And since I like beautiful tones, I had heard Open Arms, and for some reason, I think I was on like a, a trip down somewhere. I think a trip in like high school, and I went to like the record store, and I brought Journey live in Vegas or something with Steve Algeri, and
Yeah.
I was so confused because I was like, "Oh, this band is great. Love this, but this doesn't sound like the guy that I'm used to hearing. He's great, but I don't know who is this guy? Steve Algeri. Oh, so Steve Perry sang for them first. Okay, and then
Action.
I got Houston '81. I remember watching that at home one night randomly on. It came on TV. Had some dinner, and
Would you
Journey
ask?
came on like I was watching like VH1 Classic, and I sat
Oh,
in the kitchen and watched the whole concert, and was like, "Holy crap! This is the guy. This is." I love Stevie, but my voice isn't acclimated for his sound. Like, but Perry, he's got a more open sound. He's got this tone that I can like kind of mimic. I get it. It makes sense. It's light. It's high. It's good for my breath,
Uh,
like breath support.
right.
And so I just really latched on to Perry in around like '06, '07. And because it was easy for me to like hop up to a B or to a C sharp by mimicking Steve Perry,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
and
it kind of starts with it starts with mimicking, like really in a way. It's like
mimicking.
I probably wouldn't even have the range that I do if I wasn't an actor initially, and
Yeah,
getting and learn and doing character voices and stuff like that, where that you find range
if,
that way by doing different inflections and different voices.
bro, absolutely. I learned how to like belt or mix or get that access of my voice, the to get that part of my voice. I remember it clear as day. I was watching like an award ceremony, and Stevie Wonder came out and he started singing "Isn't She Lovely," and I was like, I'm so tired of singing this in falsetto, and I was able to like do the just to make the G sharp on isn't she, and like G sharp A, and once I remembered how to like keep that in my throat, um it was like, a book came down from heaven and said, okay, here's page one of how to like sing in this part of your voice.
Yeah, access that.
Access that.
Yeah.
It takes trial and error. A lot of people wonder about range and how to build it, and a lot of it honestly comes from mimicking your idols. Um, and then you just have to be very smart about your voice, that you're
Yes,
not damaging it and not punishing it and pushing it too
and
hard.
if it doesn't feel good, stop doing it the same way over and over again, because
Yeah.
that's when I was a kid. It would, it's like, oh, it's not working. Why can't I do it? And it's like, well, I'm doing it the wrong way every time, and not like reevaluating it. It's like you have to be able to step back and know when to stop. If it's a strain, you have to be able to go to another source or whatever, someone
Yes.
who can help you. But it's like that's also where you can damage your voice. You got to make sure that it feels good. You
Right.
know, how many years into singing? I just want to make sure I have enough. I'm on 3% on my phone.
You agree?
I gotta plug this in. Um, how many years into singing did your guys' mixed voice come, or you discovered it? How many years into singing? Uh, Gosh, well, I mean, I really like I've only been able to sing well at all, in my opinion,
Mhm.
for like since I was like 18. I mean,
Mhm.
people. I mean, like people might disagree with that, who might have seen me in like youth theater stuff or whatever. But as far as like really singing, not only well but like correctly,
Yeah.
you know, um, I think like the mixed voice thing came I started to come around that time, but I don't think I was really good or understood it until maybe I was like 21.
Mhm.
Where it was kind of like I'm really getting the hang of this, and this is like a part of my voice now.
Yeah.
And like, actually, there was a period I remember where it was way more evident when I would flip into my mixed voice because it was a lot quieter. Um,
Yes. That
like
makes
in fact,
sense.
like it was pointed out to me. It's like I kind of know when you're mixing because it's not as loud. And then like that kind of began the process of, oh well, I can't sing so loud in my chest resonance, so that you can even things out. That's actually still kind of a constant. Making sure that you're leveled out that way.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I'm 36, so I've been like using mixed voice for at least 15 mixed voice properly for at least 15 years.
Finger. Yeah.
I'm,
I
I'm
would.
Gene, you answer this question. I'm gonna plug in my phone. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna.
Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, how many? Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. So I'd say mixed voice for me was around probably around the same age because like obviously before puberty, I'm singing everything, every high note in falsetto. Like G sharp is in falsetto, And then, like I said, I was watching a Stevie concert, and Stevie was my hero, as was Michael. And just being able to not sing those in falsetto, I just found the thin edges of my chords, like a instead of a like a falsetto, I'll do ah, just the the ah, hey, hey, finding that. I was probably 16, 17. Was it the best? Was it consistent? No, but I knew how to access it, right? So by the time I started to take lessons, like classical, I took classical voice lessons around age 21 years old. I did have a voice teacher when I was 13 that taught me like some musical theater stuff, but that was still like baritone, vocal. My voice hadn't changed yet. But learning how to mix, I would say, is paramount um in singing this type of repertoire. So I'm what, 34, for the past 14 years, I guess, of like a consistent, solid, healthy mix. Um, this is a brilliant comment by W. Grace. Most people probably get their most practice in the car. Total privacy to try any notes to belt out in the car over and over. 100% accurate. Um, every day I was actually commuting to college. So my drive was about an hour down and then an hour back home. So what I had in rotation all the time was um, you know, Captured or Houston 81 or Journey Live Greatest Hits. That that CD. So for an hour, I'm just driving to my class, but I'm just listening to Journey. And I wasn't even like warming up beforehand. I'm just hopping in the car, sitting down, driving, Stone in Love. I would do Stone in Love and just like figure out where it fits in my voice. Do I place it more forward? Stone in Love. No, that's a bit too pinched. Stone in Love. So I'm just actively, as I'm driving, figuring out where does this fit in my voice? Where does it feel the most healthy and sustainable? So for for years, driving back and forth to school, I'm singing my favorite artists, building up my range. Now I'm not doing that as much, and it's just I do wish that let me see, should I get back on? I do wish that I had the time to drive a lot and and sing Journey all the time. Because like with anything, the more you practice it, the longer it stays. Let's see if you can